by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying.
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Thanking the creator of heaven and earth, Yehudah, for all things life, food, clothing, and shelter, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Early Shabbat Shalom to everyone. And I pray that everyone has had a progressive and a wonderful week. Sorry about last week. I'm usually put the this actual study, this actual stream on Premiere, but I just I forgot to hit the Premiere button. So the video came on at a certain time and it was fully up there already. I know some of you like the chat and you like coming in and having the feeling of just listening to it, as almost like a live, but that was a mistake on my part. Nonetheless, the video was up there. Thank you for your comments that you left under. But next week, I'll make sure to have it back at the usual routine of a premiere. So thanking you all once again. Today, we will be going over Proverbs chapter 9. As every other past week, it will be conducted by one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praise to the supreme authority of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. The respective platform on the D.C.B channel platform, the Chief Prince Area of Nasik, the host Chief Uziel, the princes, Chief brothers and sisters, the rabbinate, the Kohanim, Maureen visitors, greet you all in the time of forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, early Shabbat Shalom, and also have a Simcha Chanukah, a joyful dedication. And so that's since we're in the season of Chanukah, for those that's aware of that came in and is continuing until towards the end of next week. So I just want to touch on a few things, and I'm doing Proverbs 9, but I want to touch on a few things in YAH from the 39th chapter of Genesis, and it covers 37 chapters, Genesis, and 37 chapter of Genesis, and it concludes at the 40th chapter of Genesis. But I just want to touch on a few things within it. Now, it opens up in this fashion in the beginning of the 37th chapter of Genesis. And Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's sojourning, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, being still a lad, even with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, its father's wives. And Joseph brought evil report of them unto their father. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully unto him. All right, so now let's look at this here opening, which is, we're talking about the third generation of the patriarchs. Now we enter in the fourth when we talk about the children of Yaakov. All right, we know about the last episode that went down with Shechem and everything like that. We read about it finished off with the the leadership and kingships of Edom. And strangely enough, the kingship of Edom doesn't follow a royal lineage. Though they have kings, it's not a royal lineage. It might be a king from this guy, a king from that guy, but not necessarily your son going to become the king. As we look at the kings of Edom, sometimes we refer to them as dukes because of the word aloof that's used there. But it's not like a bloodline with the kings of Edom. But here, which is strange, that when they talk about Yaakov, our father, that it talks about, the generations of him, but yet it focuses on one guy, Joseph, at 17. All right, and so they don't mention the other sons at all. And then when they mention remotely, speaking of sons, they talk about the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, all right, who actually are older than Joseph himself. So when he's with them, not only he brings up an evil report, and an evil report don't mean it was a true report. Sometimes people say things what they think they saw and what they believe to be true, but it's not true, but it's negative. And which is, I want you to focus on that in a sense, and, bear that in mind, because when I get into the Proverbs, we have certain types of rebukes that's seemly and some that's unseemly. So we're going to be talking about different things similar to that in that vein. But another thing that's interesting is that his father makes him a coat, a katona pasim, which is a garment. It could be sleeveless, it could have sleeves. But today we use the word katona as a shirt. But it's a garment back then that's stripes, similar to what I'm wearing. That's why I pretty much wore this in the days, the stripes. And in ancient times, they have a multi-colored garment of stripes. In that time, took a lot of work. So, and also I show you that, which is strange. We know Yaakov was a cook, but we didn't realize him to be a tailor as well. So he has some skills that, we didn't really see produced before or need to be produced before, or we don't think about that. Who made the clothes for these guys? So it's not always the woman that's making clothes for guys. We read about the first clothes being made, and that was made by the Creator himself for our father and our mother, Adam and Eve, Hawa. All right. So he made them garments. But outside of that, we actually read where what you call gave Sarah a garment. Abimelech gave Sarah a garment. But when you talk about an actual garment being made, we don't never really think about who actually making this. Is it outside tailor, inside tailor, or did everybody made their own clothes? I come from a family that was my grandparents. They made clothes for all the kids, and only a few of my aunts know how to sew. That was alive. Only a few of them sewed, and they mostly was the older ones. Everybody knew how to cook well, but very few of them know how to, sew well. And I don't know of any of my uncles that was a seamstress. So, but back then it was normal for men and women to be able to tailor clothes. So this is something that's very interesting as well. But and when he took time to make it for just that one son, he didn't make anything for the rest of the sons. His older son, he had 11 other children. He didn't even have him make anything for the baby boy, which is Benjamin. He didn't make anything for him. So you would find that to be kind of strange. And then they call Joseph a lad at 17. At 17, you're pretty about ready. You're really just about a strapping adult, almost at your very full potential in physical appearance and ability. In the early years, naturally they say you could empower your strength. Some say at 30 and some say at 40, but you really, as a pretty robust individual, you're not a helpless individual at the time. And then you with your older brothers, and you telling on them something that's negative. And we must notice that if we don't read Yaakov's reply to the negative report. So that's something to consider, whether it was true or not. He doesn't even address it. And we're going to see sometimes within the story how things could be misconstrued. All right. So now we look further, and they said, and Jacob loved him because, more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. Well, Jacob wasn't a young guy when he had Reuben. He was up in age. And Joseph was not the last child that Yaakov had. But you notice, and also the subtle thing between the changes of the name, it said, Israel loved him more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. But at the beginning of the chapter, it talked about the generations of Yaakov. So why the change of the names at this point in time? That's something to be discussed. We know it's the same individual, but why use this when it talks about son of his age? Because when he wrestled and prevailed with the angel, only 11 sons and one daughter was born. Benjamin wasn't born at that time when he had that encounter with this angelic godlike being. So why use that name in reference to Joseph now with his love? And then Zachariah itself, is also, when we think of Zachariah, or the word for age, which is the word that's used here, as an elderly person, but also the word Zachariah also is used sometimes synonymously with a sage. That's why Moses was told to go to the elders of Israel, not to the basically the princes or the chief men of the house, which we read about in later on in Exodus. But we find that he was told to go to the elders. Not only that, when Moses had a nervous breakdown, imagine the great prophet Moses having this nervous breakdown, and he said he wanted to create this to kill him so he won't see his own failure. That's a nervous breakdown. Great as Moses was, that his spirit was dropped on 72 elders. So, and he said, well, why not the young guys who should be more robust, have more vigor, that carry a burden of stress and worryation concerning the nation of Israel. Leadership, most people buck for leadership, but most people that buck for leadership don't understand the burden that a leader must encounter. But anyway, it's that's not to go too far from this here. It said son of his old age. But the other kids seen that the father loved them more, so it creates a hostility. He didn't say that, but it's displayed. We don't read where it's said there. And then in the 5th verse, I'm just going to read a couple of things. I'm going to go through this pretty fast. And it said, in the 5th verse, it says, and Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, here I pray you this dream which I have dreamed. All right, so we know about the two. Joseph had 3 dreams, but we only read about 2 dreams. And one of the dreams, the last dream, we know that he revealed to his father. All right. So that's when Jacob, when he told the dream, and which is I'm going to show you a little difference. It's a lot of explanations concerning the dream other than what the symbolisms that's given in the book. You know, first dream is about wheats, and the way he worded it, you know, that, you know, they talk about your sheaves came round about and bowed to my sheaf. All right. But, you know, and his brethren said unto him, shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. So the dreams, a person can't control what they dream, but a person definitely can control how he talk. And that's one of the things that sometimes we don't pay attention to. I can't control what I dream, but I can control what I say. And yet they hated him for his dream. And they the one that interpreted the dream. You didn't read where Joseph interpreted the dream. They interpreted it in his favor. So when we go further and think about the other dream that he had, behold, I had a dream, yet a dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down to thee to the earth? And his brethren envy him more, but his father kept the saying in mind. Now, the little difference in this here, the brother's working, and he had already worked. You know, he had the results of his job. But when they talk about the sun and the moon and 11 stars, and said, and, you know, they said they bow down to me, he don't describe what he is. Is he a star like his brothers? Or he's, you know, something else? We readily assume that he considered himself a star and considered his mother and father, you know, the actual sun and moon. But it's interesting that a man can't say which star is really mine. You know, if you look up, you say, you know, which star is mine actually belong to me. You can't say that. The sheaves he's binding, he can definitely know where he put his work in. But the stars, and then you don't know where he put his work in. But yet he alludes that the sun and the moon being greater, and Yaakov and them was able to interpret the dream. But all he said was in both dreams that he was paid obation by, you know, his brethren. And in this time, even saying about his father. An interpretation, but said Jocko held the saying, because it's not like, and nobody else ever dream in their life, but they never have a dream significance to talk about. Joseph had a dream that was so dynamic that he actually talked about it. and he noticed that in the beginning of the chapter, he's hanging in with the handmaid's children, not with the actual other sons of Leah. So he would feel more superior. But yet you don't read what Benjamin's doing at this time. All right. So now we know that he's sold into slavery. And I'm just going to read a little bit of that and then go and then skip into the next chapter. It said, and his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. Now that's where they just annihilated the city. What they still doing out there? They brought a parcel of land in Shechem. We know that for sure. But they had went off from that already. So that just shows you that some of the family dynamics had a big shift. And Israel said unto Joseph, do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said unto him, Here am I. And he said unto him, Go now, see whether it is well with thy brother, and well with thy flock, and bring me back word. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? All right, so now, how you know an individual is seeking anybody? That's number one. Who's this man? A certain man. So it had to be somebody under importance. And they always debate whether it was an angelic man or a man that dealt with some divine, godly concern for another human being. So I leave that up for y'all to discuss in that area there. There's two opinions about who this certain man is. But the question that makes him seem more and divine and said, found him. First of all, who said Joseph was lost? That's number one. In the 15th verse, and a certain man found him. So if you found him, if you find somebody, either you're looking for that individual or the individual was lost, and it had to be lost, and you're looking for him. So you're looking for the individual because he had to be lost. And it don't seem like, why this man found Joseph out of everybody else? Why he found him? Was he looking for him in the beginning? And behold, he was wandering in the field. All right, wandering in the field. Some people might go in the field, just walk around. And then the man asked him, saying, What thou seekest? He found Joseph, but he's saying Joseph looking for someone or looking for something. And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they are feeding the flock. Do the man know Joseph's brothers? How did Joseph presuppose he should know their brothers? The man is unnamed. Let's just say a certain man. He's lost and wondering. If Joseph can't find his brothers right now, how did this man supposed to know where his brothers at? So it's a lot of, questions you could, go through in this particular point. But I'm not going to belabor it because there's a couple of things I want to touch on before I have to leave out. But I just want to throw those things out. And the man said, They departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and they found them in Dothan. That means already they're supposed to be in Shechem, sent out from Hebron, and which is not down the block. And Dothan is a lot further from where they was from Shechem. So he traveled a great deal just to check on the well-being of his brethren. And they saw him afar off, and behold, and before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come down, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into one of the pits. And we will say, An evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dream. Do they really believe the dream's going to come to pass? The father considered there might be something to the dream, but how, when, that was still a question. And the brothers wanted to kill him. Now, all of them hated him. But what happens in the 21st verse, it says, And Reuben heard it and delivered him out of their hands and said, Let us not take his life. So they talking about actually killing their brother, killing their sibling. They had to know about the Cain and Abel story. Way back. But yet they're going to kill him, and he come to see their welfare, come to check out about their welfare. They spot him afar off, So and they already conspired. So that means they all talk about, they was on an agreement, 100% agreement, the ones that was there, which basically, as we find later on, this is what's 10 brothers. You figure there's 10 brothers there already, the handmakers and all of them. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood, cast him into this pit that's in the wilderness, but lay no hand upon him, that he might deliver him out of their hands and restore him to his father. We know this because Moses talking about being taught with God what was in Reuben's heart. That was Reuben's plan. Reuben didn't tell him that's what his plan was. We know this because this is revealed to the prophet Moses. So he was going to turn them back. Reuben already had a mess up situation in the previous chapter, etc. And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren that they stripped Joseph of his coat, the coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into the pit. And the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. There's always a lot of controversy about that. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites came to Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm, laden ladanium, going to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him, for he is our brother, our flesh. And his brethren hearkened unto him. And there passed by Midianite merchants, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned into the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit. And he rent his clothes, and he returned unto his brethren, and said, the child is not. As for me, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat, and killed a he-goat, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, this have we found. Know whether it is thy son's coat or not. And he knew it. And he said, it is my son's coat. An evil beast had devoured Joseph. It is without doubt torn in pieces. And Jacob rent his garments, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, nay, but I will go down to the grave to my son mourning. And his father wept for him, and the Midianites sold him into Egypt, unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. So now, I read a couple of things. I'm not going to be as long in the next chapter, a couple of verses. One of the things I like to bring out is that when they conspired to sell him, when Yehudah had said and seen that the Ishmaelites coming, that you figure you can make a profit of it, and appealed to him. Reuben stopped them from killing them. But when Reuben left, it's obviously, from what Yehudah said, they still was bent on killing this individual, the brother. Reuben stalled, it brought him a little time from what we read in the story. But Yehudah let him know that what profit is to kill him? Because Reuben said, yeah, we hear you. Okay, we're gonna chill. We're gonna cool out. But that thought and that objective was still on the agenda until the Ishmaelites came. And then they sold him, and he wound up being sold into Egypt. But one of the things they sent the coat of many colors, they stripped him of the coat of many colors and sent it back to their father, Yaakov. Yaakov himself, that's why we talk about Jacob's troubles, that he sees his garment. He recognized the garment, he recognized his handiwork, but the blood that's on the garment, he didn't recognize that. He just thought it was his son's blood. He thought an evil beast had torn his son. He thought Joseph was, injured to the point of death, in the sense that he started mourning. And you notice the word, he said torn, not necessarily dead. And that's the operative thing. He said he's torn a beast, and you're going to mourn for him. Like if he still had a glimmer of hope that, all right, he's injured. He got beat down a little bit by an animal, and he came out in his garments, but perhaps he might still be alive. But then he had a mourning for years concerning this individual, and he said he refused to be comforted. If a person refused to be comforted, then that means that they go head on and usually don't consider God being bigger than your problems. So, and you notice that he ended up, read where he even hollow out to the Creator at this point in time, even in his mourning. And if he mourning, how do he mourn? And if he holding the Creator accountable, that he don't want any parts of it at this point in time, in mourning, like I said, when you grieve, mourning, you become passive. But yet, even in his passive mourning, when they try to comfort him, he refused. So he become sort of, when you reject something, you become active, rejecting this and rejecting that, whatever you're trying to do to accompany him. Then we're going to just go fast forward into another episode about Judah. Now we got two main people we're going to talk about in this, Sidra. And YAH is always used or read somewhere along Hanukkah time. But I want to bring out some other points right quick before I go into the Proverbs, because Proverbs is not really that long, this trip. And it said in the 38th chapter, and it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren and turned and to a certain Adulamite whose name was Kira. Some books, say he went down from his brothers, but unlike Joseph, who's taken away from his brothers, Yehudah actually would separate himself from the brothers voluntarily for a moment. So you got two major progenitors of major kingdoms in the future, which is the northern kingdom, which would be the descendants of Joseph in charge, and then the southern kingdom, which is the descendants of Yehudah in charge. But Yehudah actually went down from his brothers. And, that has a lot of meaning behind it, which I'm not going to go into at this particular point in time. And Joseph is taken and carried into Egypt, and that's the difference, So, and it's just say in reference to it that they sold them into Egypt, they brought him to Egypt, but Yehudah himself, and whether the status went down or what, but he left his brothers, perhaps right after this episode that transpired. So let's look into a little bit about this other patriarch, Yehudah, of the tribe of Yehudah. And he's hanging out with an Adulamite, not Israelite, whose name was Kira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went unto her, and she conceived and bore a son. And he called his name and she conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. All right. And again bore a son and called his name Shelah. All right. So now, what is interesting is whose name are these children? All right. So, and she named all three, all these children here. And and so when we look at that, and right then, what she's a Canaanite. What makes her a Canaanite? Where they get their wives from? But didn't Esau's wives displease his father? So if the wives please his father, the daughters of the land, why Yehudah hanging out with an outsider instead of his brethren? He's a friend with his outsider, but he's not a friend with his brother Joseph. And yet the rest of the brothers, he's really not hanging with them at this point in time. And he goes on and say, he got a friend, a certain man, he got a friend that he hang out with. And he married a Canaanite on top of that. And when we go into the meanings of the names, it tells another level of a story. All right. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. What he did, there's a lot of midrash stories on it, but I'm not going to focus on what he did. Just know he bad enough that God didn't wait for anybody else to kill him. They knew that the Lord slew him. He wasn't torn by a beast. He wasn't shot through. He wasn't stabbed through. So how it is, the Lord took him and slew him. And Judah said unto Onan, go into unto thy brother's wife, and perform the duty of her husband, brother, unto her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed would not be his. And it came to pass when he went in unto his brother's wife, that he spilled it on the ground, lest he should give seed to his brother. Now, he didn't have a problem dealing with the woman. So the woman had to be looking great and good. And he winds up, and it's a term, his name itself, like I say, you got to go into the names. I'm not going to spend that much time on it. But when you look at the names of these individuals, it tells a deeper insight. But why he wouldn't want to raise up seed for his brother, we know with the law of inheritance. If that child is born, especially a male child, at that time, if he's born, then all the stuff that would have went for would have been his. And also, is a firstborn. So if you had 3 sons, you divide your portion of property into 4 parts. So now, though Onan would have produced a seed with Er's widow, it would have been that individual child would have got more, double than what he would have. So could that be another a hatred? Did he care for his brother, or he was just greedy? In that sense. And if he's greedy, because we think about property, Judah said earlier concerning Joseph, what profit there is to slay our brother. So could that filter off when he's dealing with a Canaanite? Just something to discuss. When you're dealing with a Canaanite, and you have these 3 boys by this Canaanite woman, and then one of them is wicked, and the other one just isn't authorized to perform a certain task on behalf of the next individual, and do he just see monetary loss if he perform the act and raise up a child? He didn't even consider whether the woman going to be barren or not. He just realized, I'm not taking that chance. Now, there's a lot of midrashes on it, but I'm not focused on the midrash now. I'm just bringing some of the surface views here. So then, in the 10th verse, and the thing which he did was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he slew him also. Then said Yehudah to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in thy father's house till Shelah, my son, be grown up. For he said, that he also died like his brethren. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. In the process of time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Yehudah, died. And Judah was comforted and went up unto his sheep shearers to Timnah, he and his friend Kirah, the Dulamite. He's still hanging out with somebody else, not his brothers. And it was told Tamar, saying, behold, thy father-in-law goeth to Timnah to shear his sheep. And she put off from her the garments of her widowhood, and covered herself in her veil, with her veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in the entrance of Enaim, so which is by the way of Timnah. That I will focus on when it's talking about the entrance of Enaim. Enaim is an opening for eyes. You're supposed to be able to see certain things. So it brings another difference to the story when you're talking about she's sitting in a place where you should have your eyes open. And that's what it's called, Patak Enaim, which is an opening. Sometimes Patak is used at the door, but really an opening or entrance for the eyes. So what do you not see here? And what you're supposed to see, because you're supposed to have your eyes open. Now, no one is physically blind in this story, in this scenario. And we know automatically that she, he thought it to be a harlot and everything like that. And we know that he wanted to lie with her. Now, you'd say diversion. When you focus on shearing sheep, when you focus on getting your business handled, how did you get diverted when you say she appears to be a harlot? You thought of her as a harlot. So now, what's your mindset? On the business at hand or on the sexual attraction at hand? And we know from the story it's about the sexual attraction. But we noticed that she heard and saw that Shelah had grown up. Yehudah, Judah, was not intending on giving her that third son. I lost 2 sons. I got 3 sons. I don't know. It might be you. It can't be my sons. It got to be you. So they see the blame in the opposite direction. All right. So when we look further into the story, we know that she wound up getting pregnant, and then she first of all, he gave up. This I'm making an analogy here. The signet, she said, that signet, that cord, and that staff that is in thy hand, and he gave them to her, and came in unto her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away, and put off her veil from her, and put on the garments of her widowhood. So dress code, like I said, it's a dress. When she's talking about the dress of a harlot, tie of a harlot, she was wrapped in a certain way, clinging, clothes fitting, and so when you look into the Hebrew, you see that the clothes actually was wrapped around like a clinging clothes, so the widowhood, she's not trying to look so attractive and everything of that nature. And plus the widowhood, she didn't have to wear a veil, but she happened to wear a veil here. So this is the second time you read about the actual veil being used. Read it with Mother Rivka. You read it with Tamar. Like I said, I spoke before that Leah had to be laid up in the veil because that's a custom in the East. But women didn't wear a veil like, in certain cults, most Islamic cults, where they wear a veil all the time. They only wear it at certain points in time. And that's if you're going to look like a harlot, you're not trying to be identified all the places you go. So this is one of the things here that we got to look at. And so he left, now Joseph was stripped of his coat. And we're going to find later on about another action with Joseph. And it's a comparison, 2 stories. We're going to compare 2 guys, how they deal with a situation being separated from their brother. All right. But I just want to finish this part out. And then I'll just highlight Joseph a bit, and then go to the Proverbs. And talk about a little bit, before I go into Proverbs, talk a little bit about Hanukkah. It goes on to say that when he already laid with her, we gave her some collateral, and he sent his friend to go ahead and try to receive the pledge from the woman. And and one of the things about when you do wrong, sometimes you look for company, And in the 22nd verse, and he said, "Return to Judah," and he said, "I have not found her." And also the men of the place said, "There have been no harlot there." And 23rd verse, and Judah said, let her take it, lest we be put to shame. Who's the we? Who's the we? Misery love company. But let her take it, lest she be put to shame. We. Who the we? We didn't do that. You did that. So how you include that in that sense? And then we know that when she found with child, and what is interesting about condemnation without full investigation is very bad policy. She was charged with playing harlotry. Now, mind you, she's living in her father's house. So the jurisdiction of her father-in-law is higher than the father that is the actual father of the child once she had married into the family. So it teaches you a certain type of culture that the actual father-in-law in ancient times had more authority of his daughter-in-law than her actual biological father, when she became a daughter-in-law. So this is one of the cultural things that, you might want to discuss more. Is it right? Is it wrong? What you think about it? Any thoughts on that? How do your biological father loses his grip on his daughter simply because she got married? But this is some of the things to think about, and he's going to, and he sent her back to the father. Why didn't he keep her there? Since he had this authority. Sometimes you might think of it might be a bad talisman. Whatever the case is. I lost 2 sons. I don't want you to close around my 3rd son. And then it goes on to say, and I like this part, so I got to read this here. And it came to pass about 3 months after that, there was told Judah, saying, your daughter, thy daughter-in-law had played the harlot, and moreover, behold, she is with child by harlotry. And Judah said, bring her forth, and let her be burnt. When she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man whose deeds are, am I with child? And she said, discern, I pray thee, and whose deeds, the signet and the cord and the staff. And Yehudah acknowledged them and said, she was more righteous than I, for as much as I gave her not Shelah to my son, gave her not to Shelah my son, and he knew her again no more. All right. So then she had twins. But I'm gonna stop there and go to the next part with Joseph, and making a correlation. One of the things is that he the first one, that casts a judgment on an individual and actually repealed it because he realized he judged wrong. That's very essential because he repealed it. We don't have an appeal in ancient times. Once a judgment is made, it's that. But he repealed it because he thought she played the harlot, and he had cast a serious judgment of death on her, and not only a normal death, but let it be burned. Now, also, the thing is that she didn't see him directly. She sent. That means he didn't want to look at her. Didn't want to see her face. That's how upset he was. She didn't even get a chance to appear before him to say thus and thus. That's why she had to send the stuff, because they going. Tamar is on the way to the stake to be burnt alive, while a father-in-law just sitting back and say, y'all carried out that orders. And that's why she had sent and said, look here, these, this is the man who this belonged to. The garment. He recognized the garment, and he recognized that she's not as the person he conceived her to be. So therefore, she was saved, and she had twins, but he knew her again no more. Strangely enough, that the moral line, the messianic line, the Davidic line, David, comes through that same relationship. And you say, well, why would God use this relationship to bring about the Messiah? And so that's another story to talk about more at length, which I don't have time to cover at this time. As we look further into it, we find a parallel. After Joseph was brought down, into Egypt, he stayed in the house of Potiphar, and for a season, and he became an overseer. Now Joseph became an overseer, and we start in the 5th verse of 39th chapter. And it came to pass from the time that he appointed him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand. And having him, he knew not aught save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a beautiful form and fair to look upon. This is the first individual man that is actually called handsome. First man called handsome in the book. Now, if all of them had the same father, shouldn't all of them look somewhat all right? What makes them so handsome? And then when you say a man is handsome, how do you compare it? Just like you say a female is handsome. How do you compare it? And I said in the past that God made the first man, and he created the first man and he made the first woman. So the creator made man so where he's the epitome of all the form that a man would want to be like, and would create it, what a man should be like. So that is the model. So, and the same thing with Imakawa. She's the model for all beauty of womanhood. That is the actual model for all the beauty of those two individuals. So in order for Joseph to be considered handsome, somebody had to know what handsome looked like, and that it won't change from generation to generation. It had to be based on a principle that what they first considered handsome, but they first considered beautiful, and it had to be marking to the first individual. And so he's the first individual that's called handsome in the book. We had Mother Sarah, the first one to call a beautiful female. Then you talk about Rivka being beautiful, and read about the matriarch, Raquel being beautiful. But he's the first individual that's actually considered a handsome individual. And it's based on, we say, well, what Adam looked like and what is beauty? And so the book had to market like that in that area. And the thing is that, how do a servant, a slave, look so beautiful when he's thrown in the pit, dragged down, and he's carried into the caravan that's not carrying a bunch of slaves, but nice goods, a sweet smell, and balms and herbs and stuff like that. So this caravan was more of a upper class. And then the Egyptian himself who brought him, he had to be a high price that the Egyptian brought him right away, and then made him as an overseer. So Joseph, we don't know what skills Joseph had, but we read later on that that everybody see that God was with him, and then we find out that the Egyptian wife wanted to lay with him, lay with Joseph. So you have what they call today's time the cougar, because mind you, Joseph's only 17 years old, young buck, teenage. So now you got this cougar going after this young buck who happened to be a servant. Handsome individuals, a lot of midrash behind that, and she wanted him from day to day, and finally she caught up with him, try to grab him, be in the house alone. He refused. He leave his garment behind. So Yehudah leaves a staff, a signet, a cord behind, and yet you find Joseph leaving his distinguishing thing, a coat. He was stripped of his coat before by the brothers. He stripped of the coat by this individual woman, and yet he's brought up on charges that's false charges. But yet he was before brought up charges and we don't know whether they're false or not, but they didn't carry much weight. So you see like a certain type of karma being exchanged here. Yehudah went down away from his brothers and hung out with an outsider and got involved in a situation, and yet he acknowledged his fault. Joseph, on the other hand, tried to prove his innocence, and preserve his integrity. So we find the different parallels in this. We know he was thrown into prison, and when he was thrown into prison, and he's thrown in a royal prison, so that means that normally, if the wife brought up the charges, you would figure in them times, in ancient times, you would be put to death, because adultery or rape, or attempt rape would be paramount to death in most societies in the ancient times. Why then Joseph was put to death if his master thought that he really dealt with his wife? So these are some of the things. So he put in a prison. He's not put in a local prison. He put in a royal prison, and he's given authority there. And we know that how the story goes, that within the story that Joseph himself is actually put over everybody in the prison, and he's seen two guys there that have a problem. Everybody in prison have a problem. And what makes Joseph so unique is that Joseph being, put in the pit by his brothers, being accused by his master's wife, thrown in a dungeon, but you never ever heard him plead and pray. Can't you imagine that? And he was in prison for a while, but you never heard him plead or pray in all that time. So you figure he did about 13 years in prison. But and what's interesting that he's seen two guys there, and they're looking at their countenance. Who gonna look jovial in prison? And there's been of status, the head butler and the head baker. All right, these are the officers on the same level as his master was officers. So they had to be acquaintances. If you're around in royal circles and you had that kind of authority, you're gonna know the big shots in that circle. You got the head of the Joseph master was a head top guy, and the butler was a head top guy, and the baker was a head top guy. And yet they're gonna be around similar circles. And in order for them to use the royal dungeon, they had to be people of a status. Why should Joseph even consider their problems when he's there and he knows he's innocent for something? But he interpreted dreams, and he told one to remember him. Then the other one seen it was favorable, and we know the story. And in the dream, when you look at the dream, which I'm not going to go into, that the butler's actually doing his job. The baker's not really doing his job. Those are some of the different things that comes out in the dream. So we know that he told the butler to remember him, but he never once should say, God, can you get me out of this? And yet he acknowledged that interpretations, come from God, but yet, and God reveals secrets, but yet he never once prayed to God for his condition. So that should tell you another story, another side concerning that. All right. But I just want to touch on a little bit on Apocrypha before I go into the Proverbs, and bring out some things that's interesting. One, the Hanukkah season, not the Apocrypha. So excuse me. Talk about the Hanukkah season, and one of the things is that what do we really celebrate? And when we talk about the Maccabean period, what's the real celebration? Is it the victory or the dedication? Because if it's a victory, then how much of a victory could it be? Because when we look at, so we really, so the thing is that most times you celebrate more so the being able to operate and officiate in the temple itself for most of the time. I'm going to leave a few things out to consider, in this area. Is one area to consider is that the victory, when they liberated Jerusalem, the temple itself. They didn't liberate Israel. They liberated that particular city, not the surrounding towns. They was able to rededicate the actual temple itself, and rededicate themselves to the service of God in the temple. So when they got that victory, that on the 25th of Kislev, that was a victory where they said they was able to now go ahead and rededicate themselves and operate in the temple itself again, but not a victory over the Syrian Greek Empire. That war went on for years after that, so much so that we read about Yehudah, Judas Maccabean, actually dying in that war, in the war. So that means that the war wasn't over. The skirmishes kept going on. So we're not celebrating a victory over the Greek Syrians. We celebrate more concerning the actual rededication of the temple. So that bear that in mind. And when some of the things I'm just going to bring out because I won't have time to talk about it if I want to get into the Proverbs. But some of the things I'd like to speak on is that why is it that they find the oil untouched, unblemished, with the priest's seal, and they don't talk about the other artifacts of the temple when they talk about the rededication? If the temple was desecrated, then where did they get the other artifacts from? Or did they leave the artifacts alone? When we know in the first temple that Nebuchadnezzar took what they can take, his army took what they can take and destroy the rest. All right, so these are some of the questions that when you want to explore the Hanukkah situation, to bring to the front. Celebration, what is the real liberation? And why so that one thing of oil with the priest's seal was so important? Why they focus on that and not the menorah, not the table of showbread, not even the altar itself, even though and we read in a certain part of the Maccabees that they put an altar away, the original altar that was desecrated, and built another one, but they say just in case some prophet at a later time would be able to tell them what to do with it. So these are some of the questions that should emerge. Also, the thing is that the Torah that they read concerning that is, which is a little different, which is coming from the book of Zechariah. And yet it talk about two priests, they talk about, they talk about the priest rather, talk about Joshua the priest, the high priest, and talk about another leader, Zerubbabel. So now you got these two different leaders going on at the time, the priest and Zerubbabel. And Zerubbabel was supposed to be like the main leader for the people in Jerusalem. But we never had our own autonomy in that sense. So when we never had our own autonomy, what is the real battle that occurs in the Maccabean period, in the Hasmonean period? And then this guy, Yahu, Mattathias, as some books would say, the Levitical family. You got to look at, he had these 5 sons. What did the word Maccabee mean? They say it means supposed to be a hammer or strong, but then could it be an acronym for what you say? One of the songs at the sea, me kamoka belim Adonai, could it be like that, the acronym, or could it be in a sense? There could be in a sense, Matthias, Kohen, Bain, Yachanan. Could there be that acronym? For Matthias, who's the Kohen, the son of Yachanan, his father. So which one of those the Maccabee acronyms you could use? Mi Kamoka is what they sung when God split the Red Sea, the Yam Suf rather, and they came aboard and then they started to sing that song. That's when you first hear Mi Kamoka, Balim Adonai, which is said in every morning prayer. So what do they represent in that sense? And also, people fighting on different genders. But I'd like to bring about a heroine. We don't talk about too much of the heroines there. One heroine being Hannah, who, had 7 children. That's one of the stories about that, and how that Antiochus was like a madman and really wanted people to deify him and worship. And you got to say, well, what's the fight is? The fight was it against Hellenism directly, or was it against Syrian directly? So all these things to consider. Being we are from Ur of the Chaldeans, that's where our father's from. Do they look at us as we're their descendants or what? So these are some of the things that, you can discuss more as you go through the Maccabean period. Do we also, we have the scroll, the Megillah, Esther, with Purim, but it's also a scroll on Megillah. They call it Antiochus, or they call it, if they don't call it Antiochus, the scroll of the scroll of the Hasmoneans. So it's actually another scroll, a Megillah, on that particular time, on Hanukkah, that most of us, only the Yemenites and very few people read about that particular scroll. But the scroll of Megillah of Esther, they read that. That scroll came down to us in Aramaic. One of the sages, Sadia Goen, translated the scroll from Aramaic into Arabic because that was his major language there. But that actually is a scroll of Megillah Antiochus, or they changed the name sometime to Megillah Hasmonai, which is the Hasmoneans in themselves. So that's actually another scroll that's actually about that particular day. Now, those that follow a traditional approach, the Megillah Esther, you read at night and you read in that morning, the first, the day. But it's not a law or a traditional law where you have to read the scroll of the Megillah of Hasmonai. So now, when we look at those things that exist, and I'm talking about history, and this is history that you won't find in the Tanakh. The same history, when we read about the Maccabees, we're not even looking into Tanakh, and why they don't canonize or redact the book, that scroll, and yet they mentions it, but why they don't redact it, and why is what we read the Maccabees is in the Apocrypha as opposed to being canonized with the other 24 books. And some of the things that I'm just going to be brief because I'm looking at my time now. And so just to be brief, and I'm sure if you have any questions, you get back at me later on, is that when we talk about the scrolls and the Maccabees, it's first attributed to an outsider, which is Antiochus. Esther herself is one of our people. Also, the thing was that it was only dealing with a particular family more so than all of Israel collectively, in that sense. And then when you look at that, the area there, it's that when they fought for various reasons. Judas Maccabee himself, and he used to pray to the Creator when he lost his life. Before he lost his life, he was actually, seeking allegiance with Rome. So there's a lot of things going on there. And then plus the priests wind up building up a dynasty when they got in power. So they not only became the priests, but they also became a monarch. So you had a heroine such as I said, I was going to mention about a heroine right quick, which is Judith or Yehudah. That's mentioned in there, and it's always her story come down in four different. It actually was a book called a book of Yehudah, and and that story comes down in 4 different versions simply because she herself, though you read about it in the Apocrypha in one version, that she herself, they placed the time in the Apocrypha during that time of the Syrians and Antiochus and the Maccabees. Some even will say she might have been the one of the daughters of Mattathiah. Mattathias, he just mentioned the 5 sons, but not the daughter. So, that's just here or there for discussion. I'm just sharing this information out as it go quickly. But she herself brought about a victory when everybody else was about ready to give up. When she, she was a widow, and she went in and she wound up taking off the head of a top general with her maids being escorted and brought it back. And it caused the people, to be able to attack and drive out one of the top generals. I mean, one of the top armies. That's one victory. But one of the things that her story came down to us, it was a Hebrew copy at first that was lost. They had a Hebrew book on the book of Yehudah that was lost. And so they had the missionary period, those guys in the second, during the second temple at the latter part, like Hillel and Shammai, they come up with that particular portion. And also they wrote up with the Megillos for that particular time about concerning the Maccabees. But one of the things, but the Haftorah that's read in the Behotheka in the book of Zechariah is pointed out that the battles in this way of life and to turn things around is not done by might, but by my spirit. So the Maccabees used force to try to secure and get what they want, even when it was infighting amongst one another after the victory of Hanukkah, the 25th. So it was a short-lived victory, and also, that since they stayed up and tried to use force to maintain their authority and try to force people into this way of life, those that wasn't circumcised, they circumcised humanly. They went up there and made circumcised the children. So those things there, though we celebrate the miracle of rededication, we must not focus on the actual war victory, because the war victory, we just won a few battles, but we never, ever truly won the war. So those are some of the things that to bring out. I don't have much time to speak on it now. I'm going to Proverbs 9, and I'll try to bring out a couple of points in Proverbs 9.
Proverbs chapter 9. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Mishlei. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 1. Wisdom hath built her house. She hath hewn out her 7 pillars. She hath prepared her meat. She hath mingled her wine. She hath also furnished her table. She hath sent forth her maidens. She calleth upon the highest places of the city. Whoso is thoughtless, let him turn it in hither. As for him that lacketh understanding, she saith to him, Come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Forsake all thought.
All right, before we go in there. All right. So now, what we're going to have in this particular chapter of Proverbs 9, we're going to have what they call a comparison. This book 9 of Proverbs actually finished off a series concerning wisdom and folly, morality and immorality in book 9. So you actually come to a little bit of a conclusion about one major subject matter in here. And then when we look at that, it's going to be wisdom and immorality, or wisdom and folly, competing for, individuals in this particular chapter. And then when we look at the added wisdom, she goes in and started, present why she should be chosen. Why it's better for you to choose her. And then talk about the 7 pillars. We don't, it's always a controversy about 7 pillars. When they talk about she builds a house on 7 pillars. Says 7, that's kind of odd to me. But but I'm not an architect in that sense. But we would think about four pillars, or whatever the case is. But it says 7 pillars. So what is it talking about? And there's a lot of debate about the 7 pillars. And one individual, Ibn Ezra, you might want to look his name up one day. He described the 7 pillars according to what the ancients consider the 7 liberal arts. And the 7 liberal arts is grammar, reading, arithmetic, let me see, grammar, reading, arithmetic, logic, geometry, music, and astronomy. So those are the 7 liberal arts of the ancient world. If you practice all those 7, take all those 7 disciplines of a liberal arts major, you tend to be very well-rounded and erudite in a lot of areas. As just dealing with the grammar, reading, logic and arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. So that was the main thing that the ancient world wanted to focus on. So he referred to those as the 7 pillars because those 7 different disciplines of education, of intellect. All right. So it goes on and let you know, and she invite you and say, eat of my bread and drink my wine, which I mingle. Mingle how? And then she let you know, said, I want y'all guys that's thoughtless. All right. So you got to remember this line here. The people that's thoughtless don't think, they consider themselves not too smart at all. So it ain't just for those that has a little bit of intellect, but those that really don't have any intellect at all. I said, y'all simple guys, I want y'all as well. Let us read a little bit further. Continue.
It reads, verse 6, forsake all thoughtlessness and live, and walk in the way of understanding. He that correcteth a scorner getteth to himself shame, and he that reproveth a wicked man, it becometh unto him a blot.
Oh, hold right there. All right. Now, in the 7th verse, he that correcteth a scorner getteth to himself shame, and he that reproveth the wicked man, it becometh unto him a blot. This is wisdom talking? Well, wisdom, don't we supposed to reprove an individual? Don't we supposed to set him straight? Don't we supposed to tell a person when he's wrong? So it's wisdom saying something to 19 chapter. When open rebuke is better than secret love. So why is wisdom saying this? If it's wisdom. Because some people don't qualify to rebuke an individual. It's not against rebuke. But the thing is that you rebuke the act and not the individual. Most people rebuke the individual because of the act instead of condemning the act as opposed to condemning the individual. So that means that you got to qualify to even do that. And then if you condemn an individual or rebuke an individual, are you rebuking him because you want to make yourself seem like you somebody? Because usually a person that usually embarrass individuals and constantly always embarrass individual is defending themselves because their own life and their own shame, they try to attack you before you attack them. So they make themselves look important, try to keep you off balance. So this is something that wisdom is bringing out here in itself. All right. So it's saying that if you don't qualify, you don't know how to rebuke an individual, it's best to leave it alone. It takes a certain type of intellect to rebuke an individual, and it's not for everybody. Even though you might see an individual wrong, you might not be qualified to address that subject. You might have to bring it to somebody else who's better qualified to address the subject and not the individual. All right, but let's go a little further. What it says, 8.
It reads, verse 8.
Okay.
Reprove not a scorner lest he hate thee. Reprove a wise man and he will love thee.
Hold it right there. Hold it. I'm scoring it right away. It's a guy that just like that. You know what I mean? I like to talk about people. I can't see nothing good about anybody. That's a scorner. Always finding some fault with somebody to protect themselves. But a wise person, if he's wise, why are you reproving him? Because he did something that's not him. And he need that to be brought to his attention. And therefore, he gonna love you because say, man, I didn't know I looked that, I didn't know I looked that bad. I didn't see myself like that. I thank you for sharing. I'm embarrassed. Yeah, I'm embarrassed. But I thank you for sharing because I really didn't see myself like that. Well, I didn't realize I was stepping off and veering off. That's why a guy would love you if he's wise, because he don't want to look bad. He's trying to get great, you know. And then wisdom is not stopping there. What it says? Keep going. We got a few more verses with wisdom.
It reads, verse 9, give to a wise man and he will yet be wiser. Teach a righteous man and he will increase in learning. The fear of Yehovah is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the All-Holy is understanding.
All right then. All right. So right then and there. All right. First of all, if a guy is righteous, don't you think he knows quite a few things? You would think he knows quite a few things, but he don't know everything. And also, so if you're going to teach a righteous individual, and I mean, what you actually doing is helping them do more righteous acts. You know, and that's what he wants. He wants to see, how can I improve on myself? I'm not satisfied with my status in life. I'm not satisfied with my observance of Torah. I'm not satisfied with the way I pray. I want to try to improve those things. You know, and so that's why, and this is what wisdom said, teach a righteous man and he will increase in learning. That means that all you got to do is share me this, and I'm going to take this and add it to my repertoire for my good. You know, but it goes on to say further that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All right, that's where it starts at. You got to recognize that you are obligated to the Creator. Right, and that's the beginning. And it said, and the knowledge of the All-Holy is understanding. If a lot of people recognize the Creator, but they don't recognize what he consider moral codes of ethics. And that's a difference. So what is holy is how you live, how you perform. Everybody can recognize the Creator. I mean, you figure we had certain guys in the book like Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel, your God is a bad God. He's tough. You know, he recognized that. Pharaoh recognized the God of Israel. That didn't mean he was serving. He wasn't serving it. And they recognized the holiness. You know, so you got to fear the Creator in the sense of being in awe of him. You know, and that's the beginning of wisdom. Recognize, you know, what you get from that. Keep going.
It reads, 11, for by me thy days shall be multiplied, and the years of thy life shall be increased.
Keep going.
If thou art wise for thyself, and if thou scornest, thou alone shalt bear it.
All right. Now, this is all right. When we finish the 11th verse. 11th verse. It says, for by me thy days shall be multiplied, and the years of thy life shall be increased. That's wisdom. In that sense, you know, it's talking about that. And you know, maybe now, if it goes on to say, if thou art wise for thyself, and if thou scornest, thou alone shall bear it. So wisdom, that you know right in there, is tell you what is qualification, what is benefits. It states its case. Now we're going to hear from the other side right quick, which is the folly part. We're going to hear that. All right, let's continue.
Verse 13, it reads, the woman folly is riotous, she is thoughtless and knoweth nothing. And she sitteth at the door of her house on a seat in the high places of the city. To call to them.
All right. Why is now folly now? She get her turn to say what she got to say. Why does wisdom is a feminine attribute, and the folly is a feminine attribute. Now folly is not lurking in the dark places now. Folly said, look here, and wisdom sitting out in the open. Oh, everybody can see it. Let me sit out in the open and state my case. And so now you got this comparison and competition. Folly said, look here, I got something to say now concerning me. Why you should select me. All right. And to tell you about she is thoughtless and and knoweth nothing. All right. Keep going. And she said it on the door of a house. So she said it at the door of a house, on a seat in the high place of the city. Wisdom is in the broad places in the beginning we read. Wisdom is on a high place. So folly itself is saying, look, I'm up here. You can spot me. Here I am. Look at me. I got something to say. All right, but go ahead. What it says here.
Verse 15 reads, to call to them that pass by, who go right on their ways. Whoso is thoughtless, let him turn in hither. And as for him that lacketh understanding, she saith to him, stolen waters.
Hold it. Before we get to what she say to him, we only got a couple more verses. All right. But I said, look here. I'm going to use what wisdom say. You thoughtless. Use the same term wisdom used. These thoughtless ones. So I'm going to use her term to get my point across. Because that wisdom talk about the thoughtless ones, the simple ones. So Father said, look, I only want y'all that's thoughtless anyway. You think wisdom the only one that wants you? I want you. And I'm going to show you why you should choose me. Because you ain't got any brains. You don't think much. You out there moving about. All right, but I want you. And then it goes on and say the 17th verse.
Verse 17 reads, stolen waters are sweet, and bread eaten with in secret is pleasant. But
she said, look here. Evil ain't never unattracted. The last verse is going to be, evil is never unattracted. But it goes in the 18th verse.
Verse 18 reads, but he knoweth not that the shades are there, and that her guests are in the depths of the nether world. Hallelujah.
In other words, wisdom promises life. Folly, you don't know you're going to death. But folly is saying, look here. Forbidden fruit, forbidden thing, it's all that sweet, good. Evil is never unattractive. We learned that from the garden story. Anything we think about as negative or bad, we find it appealing. And folly, you notice we had 18 verses here. But wisdom covers 13 of them. I think 13 or 12 of them, And we talk about wisdom, 12 verses. So out of 12 of the 18, wisdom had more to say because it seems to be less attractive than folly did. Folly had less to say in the rest of the case. But yet wisdom let you know that you're going to live long. You're going to do good. Folly let you know that you can't see that death lie right behind the corner. So it's like, eat, drink, and die. So this is the differences between those verses. I know I've been a little long and went kind of fast on that, but it was so much going on with the Hanukkah season and with the Sidra. And I'll try to visit some other points next week and dealing with part of the Sidra I left with Yosef and Yehudah, because there still was a lot to be explained on that. I hope you got something out of what I said. Any mistakes by my own. And you can leave a comments. And with that, I bid you all, early Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Aleichem, and enjoy the rest of Hanukkah observance.
Hallelujah, Torah Abba Nasik. And thank you all for tuning in. May the Most High God bless each and every one of you. Shalom, shalom, and see you, Yah willing, next week. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.
Let's get all his wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, his laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, his laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from